Thanks for this opportunity, and let me introduce our company, TestAIng.com. We are a company focused on what we call as ensuring trustworthy AI. In fact, what is surprising is what Joseph mentioned about AI solutions, right? The three problems he mentioned about the data scarcity, the data bias, and also things related to overall trust deficit. And that's exactly the problem we are in the space. We are a horizontal platform for ensuring trustworthy AI. So I have with me my co-founders, Nilima and Vipul Kochar, CEO and co-founder. Nilima is Chief Engineering. So this is just to introduce the team who is on the call right now. So to briefly give you an idea of the problem, what we feel is while AI, as we've seen, is really mainstream in a lot of solutions, as we've seen already in different startups, and already we're seeing global acceptance. But what we feel is exactly what Joseph mentioned at the start, which is namely the bottom pile in the pile we're showing here, trust deficit. There are lots and lots of issues with respect to current deployment of AI solutions. And if you look at the data and the AI related problems, they are also, because of the trust deficit, they are manifesting themselves in several different accidents. And it is sad that at a time when AI is a great technology which can be used for the overall social good and producing very innovative solutions for overall improvement of mankind itself, we are seeing this negative, what you call the so-called implications of non-rigorous testing of AI, which leads to issues like accidents maybe leading to loss of life, accidents leading to withdrawal of a tool because of its biasness, like the Amazon hiring tool, or maybe because of the poisoning of the content by security attacks, which causes it to be brought down because of its being able to not detect the security attacks, or in case of certain aspects not being able to detect the right classes in the right way. For example, in the beige example which we saw earlier, if suppose it detected a nail as a cigarette butt, it's the wrong idea, right? So ideally, there are sometimes these accidents are not so harmful, sometimes they are harmful. But as you can see, if you have to make a technology like AI actually deliver in a successful manner, we need to be aware that we need to take dialogue from AI accidents to AI successes. And that is what we went around finding the solution for it. So because of our background, a core team, we are very big in testing and AI, we said, why don't we investigate? And then we saw that the root cause of the trust deficit comes from key issues like data scarcity, which actually Joseph mentioned about, right? Data bias, this again Joseph mentioned. Then a lot of times we have very complex models which are not necessarily fully understood by the end users on whom the AI is applied. So for example, if you deny somebody a credit card based on a complex AI model, can you help him understand what part of his profile is responsible for why he was denied a credit card? And lastly, this is coming from a tester's perspective, is that why we want to see the problem of, why accidents are happening. The accidents are happening because it is not possible to probably train the whole AI systems on the whole range of coverage of scenarios which are real time. So that is basically what we went about figuring out, that how do you solve this problem? And our solution is about bringing a test-first approach to AI deployments so that we are able to increase the acceptability of AI and reduce fears of AI, and thereupon create a responsible AI deployment. So with that, we also went about seeing, is it really there as a market? We found that there's a huge potential, because if you have to really increase the success rate of AI, we have to reduce the failure rate of AI deployments, reduce AI, increase acceptability of AI. So this is what our platform does. So what our platform does is, in a sense, solves the problem of responsible AI by reducing the risk by testing for the models before they're deployed on these dimensions. The first dimension, which is very important for especially mission critical areas like healthcare, insurance, etc., is transparency. So we bring transparency into the model by explainable AI. Then we look at corner cases discovery of the models by security attack vectors. Today, there's a new hacker breed in town. What they're doing is they're taking an image, they're kind of manipulating slightly and causing the evasion of something like, let's say, AI-based security solution. And that is a security attack. So a new kind of security attack vector is also in town. So we need to make sure that we need to audit the models for security. Then fairness and bias, like already Joseph mentioned, that's again a big problem. And this is exactly where we want to make sure that the AI solutions coming out are conformant to, there are multiple SDGs related to fairness around gender, etc. And that is something we feel there is a huge problem in the current AI deployments. So, but what the solution is? The solution is an end-to-end testing framework for AI, which can handle testing of all of these aspects before the AI model is deployed. So our framework is a horizontal technology, which is a set of test algorithms and routines, which takes any AI model and audits it for transparency, audits it for security attacks, audits it for privacy leakages, and audits for bias. But at the same time, one of the other aspects, which is basically the reason why a lot of times we see accidents, is the lack of coverage. Coverage means, are you able to cover a lot of real life scenarios in your training model? And that is where we try to complement it with two kinds of approaches. One is technical approaches to understanding what are the corner cases in the input which are not covered by your training. So we try to generate training variants which are potentially simulating the real life corner cases which are not adequately represented by current model. So what we do is we try to create a, we are trying to file a lot of patents in this domain where we're talking about coverage-based analysis of your model, so that we create a more robust set of training data which can help the overall coverage, and thereupon be ensuring that it allows for succeeding in the corner cases. So that given, we also are embarking upon another shortage we feel is a problem in terms of inefficient models, is the lack of sufficient data. So that's where we also have test data augmentation techniques to help augment your training data so that you can generate more and more synthetic data to augment your real data for your localized requirements, so that it can give you a better model and a more robust model. And lastly, in terms of performance, we see that when you try to look at testing of any AI model, performance is not limited to only testing for the accuracy. It's also about how does it perform in respect to how many people are trying to load it. So we see there are these 7 factors: transparency, privacy, bias, security, coverage, data sufficiency, and performance. These are the 7 pillars on which our framework is based. We work on all kinds of input data, which is ultimately going to help you in generating a transparent, unbiased, secure, and well-tested implementation. So my market opportunity is, I would say, 1/8 of around 1,000 billion. And that's quite a large opportunity because testing is about a significant percentage of AI market. In terms of what our team, I want to show you is, we have a team out of which 2 of them are here, and we have a well-rounded team with AI and testing specialists, compete with some of the biggies in this domain. And this is where our roadmap is. And what we seek the funding for is primarily for scaling our current product to larger markets. And our product market strategy is currently looking at what we say, primarily looking at more compliance-oriented markets. So with that, our goal is to basically ensure a horizontal deep tech auditing model for any AI deployment. We can help work in mainly more and more conformance requirements or legal requirements kind of dominated verticals. So with that, we want to pitch our thing for this session so that we can scale up our company.